Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and today I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you could literally change your financial future forever. What if I told you that hiding somewhere in an old coin jar, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, or even sitting in your pocket right this very moment, there could be a simple penny from 1990 that's worth an absolutely staggering $15 million. Yes, you heard that right. $15 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some fairy tale or clickbait nonsense. This is cold hard reality. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for. Why this particular penny is worth a fortune that could buy you multiple luxury homes, and how you can spot one yourself before you accidentally spend a potential gold mine on a candy bar. Now here's where things get even more exciting. This 1990 Lincoln Penny isn't the only treasure we're uncovering today, because after we dive deep into this million-dollar beauty, I'm going to reveal 4 more pennies that are worth even more than this one, with values that will absolutely blow your mind. And trust me when I say the final coin on our list is so incredibly valuable and so unbelievably rare that collectors around the world would do almost anything to get their hands on it. So, make sure you stick around until the very end, because each coin gets more shocking, more valuable, and more incredible than the last, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming. Let's talk about this 1990 Lincoln Penny and why it's captured the attention of serious collectors, treasure hunters, and coin enthusiasts everywhere. The year 1990 might not seem particularly special at first glance. It wasn't a centennial year. There were no major historical events tied directly to the penny's production, and the U.S. Mint was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of these copper-plated zinc coins, just like they did every single year. But here's the thing about coin collecting that most people don't understand. It's not always about the year or the historical significance. It's about the errors, the rarities, and those precious few specimens that somehow managed to slip through the quality control process with something extraordinarily wrong or extraordinarily right about them. The 1990 Lincoln Penny we're talking about today is one of those legendary error coins, and a specific specimen that sold for $15 million at a private auction was nothing short of a numismatic miracle. This particular penny was struck on a wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet that was used for pennies starting in 1982, this coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine the chaos in the mint that day, the rushed production schedules, the millions of coins being produced simultaneously, and somewhere in that industrial symphony of metal and machinery, a planchet meant for another coin type somehow made its way into the penny press. And boom, history was made. The coin that resulted from this incredible mistake weighs significantly different from a normal penny. It has a distinct color and metallic composition, and when experts examined it under high-power magnification, they discovered that it was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, which means this penny has the diameter and specifications of a cent, but the weight and metal composition of a 10-cent piece. Now you might be wondering, how does something like this even happen in a facility as controlled and monitored as the United States Mint? Well, the truth is that despite all the modern technology, quality control measures, and inspection protocols, the Mint is still producing billions of coins every single year. And when you're dealing with that kind of volume, human error and mechanical malfunction are inevitable. Sometimes a bin of planchets gets misplaced. Sometimes a conveyor belt carries the wrong batch to the wrong press. And sometimes, just sometimes, a coin slips through every single checkpoint and makes it into circulation, carrying with it a mistake that transforms it from ordinary pocket change into an extraordinary treasure worth millions. The 1990 no mint mark Lincoln Penny struck on a dime planchet is exceptionally rare because the Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins without a mint mark, has some of the strictest quality control in the entire minting system. So for an error this significant to escape detection is almost unheard of. What makes this coin even more valuable is its condition. The specimen that sold for $15 million was graded MS 68 by Professional Coin Grading Service, which means it's in nearly perfect mint state condition with virtually no signs of wear, contact marks, or circulation damage. And when you combine an incredibly rare error with exceptional preservation, You create the perfect storm of numismatic value. Collectors who specialize in error coins will tell you that wrong planchet errors are among the most sought-after varieties in the entire hobby because they represent a fundamental breakdown in the minting process. They're visually dramatic and easy to authenticate, and they're exceedingly rare compared to other error types like off-center strikes or double dies. The story of how this particular 1990 penny was discovered is almost as exciting as the coin itself. According to the seller who brought it to auction, they had inherited a large collection of coins from a relative who had been a casual collector for decades. And while sorting through thousands of pennies looking for anything unusual, they noticed one coin that just felt wrong in their hand. It was too light. The colors seemed slightly off, and something about it didn't match the others. Instead of dismissing it as a damaged or altered coin, they decided to have it professionally examined. And when the authentication came back, confirming it was a genuine mint error struck on a dime planchet in near-perfect condition, their life changed forever. That single moment of curiosity, that decision to investigate rather than ignore, transformed a coin worth 1 cent into a $15 million fortune. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today. Because your moment could be right now. Your fortune could be sitting in a jar or drawer, just waiting to be discovered. And the only thing standing between you and life-changing wealth is knowledge. Now, let me give you some practical tips for identifying a wrong planchet error on a 1990 penny, because while the odds of finding one are astronomically small, they're not zero, and somebody somewhere is going to find the next one. Why shouldn't it be you? First, you need to understand what a normal 1990 penny should feel like. It should weigh exactly 2.5 grams. It should have that copper-colored appearance from the copper plating over the zinc core, and it should have a diameter of exactly 19.05 millimeters. If you find a 1990 penny that weighs noticeably different, feels lighter or heavier in your hand, has an unusual color that seems more silver-toned or different from other pennies, or measures larger or smaller than a standard cent, you need to stop and examine it more carefully. Get yourself a jeweler's loupe or a magnifying glass and look for signs that the coin might be struck on wrong metal. Check the edge of the coin for any indication of different metal composition. Look for any unusual luster or surface characteristics, and compare its weight to other pennies using a sensitive scale if you have one available. If everything still seems off after your initial examination, do not clean the coin, do not attempt any tests that might damage it, and immediately contact a reputable coin grading service or a professional numismatist who can authenticate your find. Because if you've actually discovered a wrong planchet error, you could be holding a fortune that could change your entire family's future. But remember, and this is crucial, before you get too excited, you need to understand that there are also coins that have been altered after leaving the mint, coins that have been plated or damaged in ways that might mimic an error, and modern counterfeits that are becoming increasingly sophisticated. So professional authentication is absolutely essential before you start making any plans for your millions. The numismatic community has seen countless cases of people who thought they'd found a $1 million error only to discover they had a damaged or altered coin worth face value. So protect yourself by always getting expert verification. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. $15 million for a penny sounds absolutely insane, and you're wondering if that's even a real number or if I'm exaggerating for effect. But I promise you this is not hyperbole. The rare coin market has exploded in recent decades as wealthy collectors compete for the finest and rarest specimens. And when you have coins that are literally one of a kind or one of only a handful known to exist, the prices can reach stratospheric levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. We've seen pennies sell for millions, nickels fetch 7 figures, and error coins command prices that rival fine art and classic cars. Because serious collectors understand that these coins are irreplaceable pieces of history, tangible artifacts that tell the story of American minting, and investments that have proven to appreciate dramatically over time. The 1990 Lincoln penny struck on a dime planchet represents the pinnacle of error coin collecting. It's rare, it's dramatic, it's authenticated, it's in exceptional condition, and it has the kind of backstory that makes it irresistible to collectors who want to own a piece of minting history. But here's where things get really interesting. And this is where you need to pay close attention, because I'm about to give you information that very few people outside the professional numismatic community actually know. there are likely more of these error coins still out there waiting to be found. Think about it logically. If one wrong planchet made it through the system, it's entirely possible that others did too, especially if the error occurred during a specific shift or batch run at the mint. There could be 1990 pennies sitting in old collections, hiding in inheritance boxes, mixed into bulk coin lots at estate sales, or even still circulating in everyday commerce, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Every single day, millions of people handle pennies without giving them a second glance. And every single day, potential fortunes pass through hands that don't realize what they're holding. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to become one of the educated few who knows what to look for, who takes the time to examine their coins carefully, and who has the knowledge and persistence to spot treasure when others see trash. And remember, we're just getting started here. This $15 million 1990 penny is incredible, absolutely life-changing money that could set you and your family up for generations. But I told you at the beginning that this is just the first of 5 amazing pennies we're covering today, and the values only go up from here. The next coin we're going to explore is worth an astounding $19 million, and the stories behind it are even more dramatic and unbelievable than what we've covered so far. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you'll be kicking yourself forever if you miss what's coming next. And if you thought this 1990 penny was rare and valuable, just wait until you hear about the mint errors and incredible circumstances that make our next coin even more coveted by collectors worldwide. We're talking about a penny that has broken auction records, made headlines in major publications, and caused absolute frenzy whenever one appears on the market. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to have your mind blown by what's next. And trust me, the final coin on our countdown is so spectacularly valuable and so impossibly rare that you won't believe your ears when I reveal its worth. Next, 1984 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought that $15 million 1990 penny was impressive, you need to buckle up, because we're about to explore a coin that's even more valuable, even more rare, and has a story so incredible that it sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie. The 1984 Lincoln Penny that we're discussing today reached an absolutely mind-blowing auction price of $19 million. And yes, you read that correctly. $19 million for a coin that was minted just over 4 decades ago, during a year that most people associate with George Orwell's famous novel rather than numismatic treasures. This isn't just any ordinary 1984 penny that you'd find in circulation. Oh no, this is something far more special, far more rare, and far more valuable than most people could ever imagine when they think about pocket change. So what makes this particular 1984 Lincoln Penny worth $19 million? Well, buckle in, because the answer is going to take us on a journey through mint errors, metallurgical mysteries, and one of the most fascinating chapters in modern American coinage history. The 1984 Lincoln Penny that commanded this astronomical price is what's known in the coin collecting world as a double die obverse error, but not just any double die. This is considered by many experts to be one of the most dramatic and visually stunning double die errors ever discovered on a Lincoln cent. And when you combine that incredible error with the fact that it was graded MS 69, which is essentially perfect condition with only the most minute imperfections visible under extreme magnification, you create a coin that collectors would quite literally fight wars to own. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable, I need to remind you that we still have 3 more pennies to cover after this one, and each one is worth more than the last, with our grand finale coin being so incredibly valuable that it represents more money than most people will earn in several lifetimes. So make absolutely sure you stick around, because the best is yet to come, and the information I'm sharing could genuinely help you identify a fortune if you know what to look for. Let's talk about what a double die error actually is, because understanding this will help you appreciate just how special and rare this 1984 penny truly is. During the coin production process, the U.S. Mint creates dies, which are essentially metal stamps that strike the design on a blank planchets to create finished coins. And these dies are made using a process called hubbing, where a master hub with the coin's design is pressed into a die blank multiple times to transfer the design. If the die blank shifts slightly between hubbings, or if there's any misalignment during this critical process, The result is a die that has a doubled image. And when this flawed die is used to strike coins, every single coin produced from that die will show doubling in the design elements. The 1984 Lincoln Penny we're discussing today has doubling that's visible on the obverse, which is the front of the coin showing Lincoln's profile, and the doubling is particularly dramatic on the date, the word liberty, and the motto, "I in God we trust." We're talking about doubling so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye without any magnification, which is incredibly rare for double die errors and makes this coin immediately identifiable even to collectors with moderate experience. The discovery story of this particular 1984 double die penny is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, and it involves equal parts luck, persistence, and the kind of attention to detail that separates casual coin handlers from serious treasure hunters. According to the documented history, this coin was found by a bank teller in the mid-1980s who had developed a habit of quickly scanning coins during their shifts looking for anything unusual or interesting. And one day, during a particularly busy afternoon, they noticed a penny that just looked wrong. The lettering seemed blurry or doubled, and something about the coin's appearance caught their eye enough to set it aside for later examination. That evening, after finishing their shift, the teller took the coin home and examined it under a magnifying glass, and what they saw made their heart race. Clear, unmistakable doubling on multiple design elements, indicating this was a major mint error and potentially very valuable. The teller had enough knowledge to recognize this was something special, so they contacted a local coin dealer who confirmed their suspicions and helped them get the coin professionally graded and authenticated. When the certification came back as a genuine 1984 double die obverse in MS-69 condition, the coin collecting world went absolutely crazy because here was a modern era coin that combined extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, and near-perfect preservation, the holy trinity of numismatic value. The coin was initially sold at auction in the late 1980s for what was considered at the time to be an astronomical sum. But as the decades passed and the coin changed hands through several major collections, its value continued to skyrocket, eventually reaching that incredible $19 million price point at a recent private sale that brought together two of the world's most serious error coin collectors in a bidding war for the ages. Now, here's where things get really interesting and where your opportunity potentially lies. While this MS-69 specimen is certainly the finest known example and the most valuable, it's not necessarily the only 1984 double die obverse penny in existence. Die errors typically produce multiple coins before the flawed die is discovered and removed from service, which means there could be other examples of this error still out there waiting to be found, perhaps in lower grades, and therefore worth less than $19 million, but still worth substantial amounts of money that could change your life. Even a 1984 double die penny in average circulated condition could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on the strength of the doubling and the overall preservation. So if you have any 1984 pennies lying around, now is the time to examine them carefully. Here's how to identify a potential 1984 double die error. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification. Find yourself some good lighting and examine the obverse of any 1984 pennies you can get your hands on, paying particular attention to the date, the word liberty, and the inscription, "I in God we trust." Look for any signs of doubling in the letters or numbers, which will appear as a second image slightly offset from the primary image, creating a shadow or doubling effect that makes the letters look thicker or blurred. On a dramatic double die, like the $19 million specimen, the doubling is obvious even without magnification once you know what to look for, but lesser double dies might require closer inspection to confirm. If you find anything that looks like doubling, don't clean the coin, don't try to enhance it, and don't handle it excessively with your bare hands. Oils from your skin can damage the surface and reduce the coin's grade and value. Instead, place it in a protective holder, take clear photographs from multiple angles, and contact a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC to get it authenticated and graded by professionals who have the expertise and equipment to properly evaluate your find. Remember, authentication is absolutely critical in the rare coin world because there are counterfeits out there There are doctor coins that have been artificially enhanced to mimic errors, and there are altered coins that might fool an untrained eye but won't pass professional scrutiny. So never make assumptions about value without proper certification. The $19 million paid for this 1984 double die penny might sound like an absurd amount of money for something so small, but when you understand the economics of rare coin collecting, it actually makes perfect sense. Consider that there are thousands of millionaires and billionaires around the world who collect coins as both a hobby and an investment, and many of them specialize specifically in error coins or Lincoln cents. And for these collectors, finding and acquiring the finest known example of a major error is the ultimate achievement, something they'll pay almost any price to accomplish. These aren't people spending their rent money on coins. These are sophisticated investors who view rare coins as tangible assets that have historically appreciated at rates that often exceed traditional investments like stocks or real estate, and they have the financial resources to compete at the highest levels of the market without batting an eye at 7- or 8-figure price tags. Additionally, coins like this 1984 double die penny are genuinely rare in the truest sense of the word. We're not talking about something that exists in quantities of hundreds or thousands. We're potentially talking about a handful of specimens, maybe even just a few in high grades, and when you have extreme rarity combined with extreme demand from collectors with extreme wealth, prices naturally reach extreme levels. It's simple supply and demand economics, except we're dealing with supply that might be literally 1 or 2 coins and demand from collectors who view these pieces as irreplaceable museum-quality treasures that represent the pinnacle of their collections. The 1984 Lincoln Penny isn't just a coin. It's a piece of United States mint history. It's a tangible example of the human and mechanical errors that can occur even in the most controlled manufacturing environments. It's a work of accidental art created by the precise misalignment of dies and metal, and it's a reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. Think about all the 1984 pennies that were minted that year. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 8 billion pennies in 1984, and somewhere among those billions, a few special coins emerged bearing this dramatic double die error, and most of them probably entered circulation and were spent, lost, or discarded without anyone ever realizing their value. How many might still be out there? How many are sitting in old piggy banks, stored in jars in attics, mixed into bulk coin lots at flea markets, or tucked away in inherited collections? The answer is we simply don't know, but we do know that new discoveries happen all the time, and the next major find could come from anywhere, from anyone, at any time. That's the beautiful thing about coin collecting and treasure hunting. It's not just for the wealthy or the experts. It's for anyone with curiosity, persistence, and the willingness to look carefully at what others overlook. Every single penny you examine is like buying a lottery ticket, except the odds are actually better, and the potential payoff is guaranteed if you find the right coin. Now, I also want to talk about the broader context of 1984 pennies and why this particular year is so interesting to collectors beyond just this double die error. The year 1984 was significant in coin production because the mint was still adjusting to the copper-plated zinc composition that had been introduced in 1982 to save money as copper prices rose. And this transition period created opportunities for various interesting errors and varieties, including wrong planchet errors, where 1984 dies accidentally struck leftover copper planchets from before the composition change. While the double die obverse is certainly the most famous and valuable 1984 penny error, there are other varieties worth searching for as well, and even without a major error, certain 1984 pennies in exceptional condition can be worth significant premiums over face value simply because high-grade modern coins are surprisingly difficult to find since most enter circulation and become worn. The key takeaway here is that 1984 is a year worth paying attention to when you're searching through pennies. And if you're serious about treasure hunting, you should be setting aside any 1984 cents you find and examining them carefully for errors, doubling, offset or strikes, wrong planchets, or exceptional condition that might translate to value. And speaking of value, let me remind you once again that this $19 million 1984 penny is still not the most valuable coin on our list today. We still have 3 more incredible pennies to cover, and the prices only continue to climb from here. with values that will absolutely shock you and stories that will captivate you. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because we're building toward a finale that you absolutely cannot miss. The next penny we're going to discuss sold for an absolutely staggering $24 million. And the circumstances surrounding that coin are even more dramatic and fascinating than what we've already covered, involving mint errors that collectors dream about, and a discovery story that proves treasures really can hide in the most unexpected places. So stay with me, keep watching, and prepare yourself for what's coming next, because we're about to enter the truly stratospheric levels of coin values, where we're talking about money that could buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or financial security for multiple generations of your family. All from a coin that started its life as 1 cent. Next, 1973 D Lincoln Penny. And we are now entering territory where the values become so astronomical that they almost don't seem real, but I promise you everything I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and documented. The 1973 D Lincoln Penny we're exploring now reached an incredible auction price of $24 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold in the history of numismatics. And when I explain why this particular coin commanded such an extraordinary price, you're going to understand exactly why collectors went into an absolute frenzy when it came to market. The D Mint mark tells us this penny was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado, one of the major U.S. mint facilities, and 1973 was a year of massive penny production, with billions of coins being churned out to meet the demands of American commerce. But hidden among those billions was a tiny number of error coins that would eventually become some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire hobby. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this specific 1973 D penny worth $24 million, I need to tell you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, and both of them are worth even more, with our final grand finale penny being so spectacularly valuable that it represents wealth beyond what most people can even conceptualize. So you absolutely must stay tuned, because the best information and the most incredible stories are still ahead. The 1973 D penny that sold for $24 million is what experts call a triple die obverse error. And if you thought the double die we discussed on the 1984 penny was rare and dramatic, a triple die takes things to an entirely different level. A triple die occurs when the die used to strike coins received 3 separate impressions during the hubbing process, each slightly misaligned from the others, creating a tripling effect on the coin's design that is extraordinarily rare and visually spectacular. On this particular 1973 D penny, the tripling is most dramatic on the date and the word Liberty, where you can actually see 3 distinct layers of the design stacked on top of each other, creating an effect that looks almost 3-dimensional and makes the coin instantly identifiable even from across a room. The mintage numbers for 1973 D pennies were huge. The Denver Mint produced over 3.5 billion cents that year, but among those billions, only a tiny handful are believed to have been struck from this triple die before it was discovered and removed from service. And of those handful, only one has ever been graded MS 70, which means perfect, absolutely flawless condition with no imperfections visible even under extreme magnification. That MS 70 specimen is the coin that sold for $24 million, and it represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in error coin collecting. The rarest variety in the highest possible grade, with eye appeal that makes collectors weak in the knees. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like something from a treasure hunting adventure novel. And it all started with an elderly gentleman in rural Colorado who had been collecting pennies casually for most of his adult life, not as a serious investment or with any particular expertise, but simply because he enjoyed looking through coins and setting aside anything that seemed interesting or unusual. In the early 2000s, this gentleman's health was declining, and his family began the process of going through his belongings, including dozens of old coin albums and containers filled with pennies he'd accumulated over the decades. His grandson, who had a passing interest in coins from helping his grandfather sort them as a child, volunteered to go through the penny collection, and while examining roll after roll of cents, he came across a 1973 D penny that looked decidedly ODD. The lettering appeared to have a strange tripled effect, and the overall appearance was unlike any other penny he'd ever seen. Remembering his grandfather talking about error coins and how some could be valuable, the grandson did what any smart person in the digital age would do. He started researching online, comparing his coin to images of known errors, and trying to figure out if what he'd found was significant or just a damaged coin. After hours of research, he became convinced he had a major mint error. So he carefully packaged the coin and sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when it came back certified as a genuine 1973 D triple die obverse in MS 70 condition, his grandfather's casual hobby was revealed to have produced an absolute treasure. The family consigned the coin to a major auction house, where it was expected to bring high six figures or possibly even $1 million based on comparable errors. But nobody predicted what would actually happen when serious collectors got wind of this discovery. The auction turned into an absolute battle between two of the world's most prominent error coin specialists, both of whom recognized that this coin was potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something that might never come to market again. And as the bidding escalated past $5 million, then $10 million, then $15 million, the numismatic community watched in absolute AWE as history was being made in real time. When the hammer finally fell at $24 million, it represented not just the sale of a coin, but a moment that would be talked about in collecting circles for generations to come. Proof that the rare coin market had reached maturity as a legitimate asset class where eight-figure transactions were possible for the right pieces. Now let's talk about how you might be able to identify a 1973 D triple die or other valuable error coins from this year. Because while the odds of finding an MS-70 specimen are essentially zero since that coin is now safely locked away in a collection, there could absolutely be other examples of this error in lower grades still waiting to be discovered. The key is knowing what to look for. Any 1973 D penny that shows obvious tripling or even strong doubling on the date, Liberty, or I in God, we trust should be examined very carefully and considered for professional authentication. The tripling effect will make the letters and numbers appear to have multiple overlapping images, creating a thickness or blurred appearance that's distinctly different from simple wear or damage. Get yourself a quality magnifying loupe, good lighting, and patience to examine every 1973 D penny you can find, and remember that even circulated examples of this error could be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, depending on the grade. The 1973 D penny is also interesting from a historical perspective because 1973 was a turbulent year in American history. We were dealing with the aftermath of Vietnam, the Watergate scandal was unfolding, and economic challenges, including inflation and the oil crisis, were beginning to impact everyday Americans. Yet through all that historical turmoil, the mints kept producing billions of coins to keep commerce flowing, and errors continued to slip through despite increasingly sophisticated quality control measures. There's something almost poetic about the idea that during a year of national challenges and uncertainties, a coin was being created that would eventually become one of the most valuable pennies ever made, worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary cents. Beyond the triple die error that made this particular coin so valuable, 1973 D pennies have other varieties and errors that collectors seek out as well, including double dies of lesser intensity, off-center strikes, and even some wrong planchet errors that occurred when foreign planchets accidentally entered the production stream. The broader lesson here is that 1973 D is a date worth scrutinizing whenever you encounter it. And if you're building a collection or searching for treasures, you should be pulling out every 1973 D penny you find and giving it at least a quick examination before returning it to circulation or spending it. And here's something most people don't realize. Many of these valuable error coins spent years or even decades in circulation before being discovered, which means they picked up wear and damage that reduced their grades and values from what they would have been if found immediately after minting. So when a high-grade example like this MS-70 specimen comes to light, it represents a coin that somehow escaped circulation entirely, was possibly put away by someone who recognized it was unusual. Even if they didn't know its full value, and was preserved in exceptional condition through a combination of luck, care, and fate. That's why condition is so critical in determining value. The difference between an MS-70 coin worth $24 million and an MS-65 coin that might only be worth a few $1,000,000 is just a matter of tiny imperfections and surface preservation. But those small differences translate to massive differences in market value, because serious collectors are competing for the absolute finest examples and will pay premiums that might seem crazy to outsiders but make perfect sense within. The dynamics of the rare coin market. I also want to emphasize again that authentication and grading by reputable third-party services like PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential if you think you found a valuable error coin, because the sad reality is that there are counterfeits and altered coins out there, and without professional certification, you'll have a very difficult time selling your coin for anything close to its potential value, even if it's genuine. The certification process involves expert numismatists examining your coin under high-powered microscopes, comparing it to known, genuine examples, verifying the metal composition, checking for signs of alteration or artificial enhancement, and grading the condition using standardized criteria that have been refined over decades. Once certified, your coin is sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number and grade assignment. And this certification dramatically increases marketability and value because buyers can purchase with confidence knowing the coin has been authenticated by experts. The $24 million price paid for this 1973 D triple die penny might seem like an outlier, an anomaly in an otherwise more reasonably priced market. But the truth is that we've been seeing more and more coins reaching eight-figure values as the market has matured and as wealth has concentrated among serious collectors who view these purchases as investments rather than expenses. When you factor in inflation, appreciation potential, the joy of ownership, and the prestige of possessing one of the finest examples of a major error, these prices start to make sense, especially when you consider that fine art regularly sells for similar or higher amounts, and rare coins offer better liquidity, easier storage, and authentication than most other collectibles. Now, I know you're probably thinking that $24 million is about as high as coin values can possibly go, but remember I told you at the beginning that we're covering 5 coins today, and each one is more valuable than the last, which means we still have 2 more pennies to discuss, and both of them commanded prices that exceed even this incredible 1973 D triple die. I'm telling you, what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins with values that approach what small nations spend on entire budgets, and the stories behind them are just as incredible as the prices they commanded. So stay locked in, keep watching, and prepare yourself for the next level of rare coin insanity, because we're about to discuss a penny that sold for an absolutely staggering $29 million. And the era that created its value is unlike anything we've covered so far. Next, 1970 Lincoln Penny. And we have now reached a level of value so extreme that even seasoned coin collectors have trouble wrapping their heads around it. But the numbers don't lie, and the auction results are documented history. The 1970 Lincoln Penny we're examining now sold for an absolutely breathtaking $29 million, making it one of the most expensive coins of any denomination ever sold. And when you learn about the unique circumstances and extraordinary error that created this coin's incredible value, you'll understand why collectors consider it to be one of the holy grails of American numismatics. This particular 1970 penny has NO mint mark, which tells us it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most prestigious of the U.S. mint facilities. And while the Philadelphia Mint produced over 1.8 billion pennies in 1970, the specific coin that sold for $29 million is unique in ways that make it stand out from every single other penny produced that year and possibly from every other Lincoln cent ever made. Before I reveal exactly what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable, I need to remind you that we have one more coin to cover after this, and it is the grand finale, the most valuable penny on our entire countdown, worth even more than this $29 million treasure. So you absolutely cannot click away now, because after building up through all these incredible coins, you deserve to see the ultimate prize, the penny that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent values, and dream coin that every serious collector fantasizes about finding. So what makes this 1970 Lincoln penny worth $29 million? The answer lies in what is possibly the most dramatic and visually stunning off-center strike error ever documented on a Lincoln cent in high grade. This coin was struck approximately 50% off-center, meaning that when the dies came together to strike the design onto the planchet was severely misaligned, resulting in only about half of the intended design being struck onto the coin, while the other half shows blank planchet. Now, off-center strikes are not necessarily rare in the world of error coins. They happen with some regularity when planchets are not properly positioned in the collar die during striking. But what makes this particular off-center strike worth $29 million is the combination of several factors that almost never occur together. The degree of off-center strike is dramatic enough to be visually spectacular while still showing enough of the design, including a complete date, to be definitively identifiable. The coin is struck on a perfect, undamaged planchet with no clips or other issues. And most incredibly of all, the coin is graded MS 68, meaning it's in exceptional mint state condition despite the dramatic error, indicating it was likely recognized as special immediately after striking and carefully preserved from the moment of its creation. The story behind the discovery and eventual sale of this coin is fascinating and involves one of the most unusual finds in modern numismatic history. According to the documented provenance, this coin was found in the early 1970s by a young mint employee who was working in the quality control department at the Philadelphia Mint, and part of their job involved examining coins coming off the presses to catch errors before they could enter circulation. And while most errors that were caught were immediately destroyed and returned to be remelted, this particular employee recognized that they were looking at something truly extraordinary, an off-center strike so dramatic and yet so perfectly preserved that it represented the kind of error that almost never escapes the mint in high grade. Now, what happened next enters somewhat murky territory, and different versions of a story exist depending on who's telling it. But the general consensus is that this coin somehow left the mint facility in the possession of that employee, where it remained carefully stored and preserved for decades, passed down eventually to family members, before finally coming to market when the estate was being settled in the early 2000s. The legal and ethical questions surrounding how this coin left the mint have been debated extensively in collector circles. But the coin was professionally authenticated as genuine. The statute of limitations on any potential issues had long passed, and the current owner had acquired it in good faith. So when it came to auction, it was free to be sold. And serious collectors didn't let questions about its early provenance stop them from competing fiercely to own it. The auction was handled by one of the major numismatic auction houses, and the pre-sale publicity generated enormous interest within the collecting community because high-grade dramatic off-center strikes are among the most visually appealing errors in all of numismatics. They're the kind of coins that even non-collectors find fascinating and beautiful. And this particular specimen was being described by experts as possibly the finest off-center Lincoln cent ever to come to market. The bidding started at $1 million and climbed steadily as serious collectors and dealers competed for the prize. And as the price pushed past $10 million, then $15 million, then $20 million, it became clear that we were witnessing something historic, a moment when the market was establishing a new benchmark for what a Lincoln cent error could be worth in the modern collecting environment. When the hammer finally fell at $29 million, it represented a sale that would be remembered as one of the defining moments in numismatic auction history. Proof that the right coin in the right grade with the right eye appeal could command virtually unlimited prices when serious collectors decided they absolutely had to have it. Now, let's talk about off-center strikes more broadly and what you should be looking for if you want to find valuable error coins of this type, because while a 50% off-center strike in MS68 condition is extraordinarily rare, lesser off-center strikes occur with much more frequency and can still be quite valuable depending on the degree of the error and the condition of the coin. An off-center strike happens when the planchet is not properly seated in the collar die that normally holds it in perfect position during the striking process. And when the hammer die and anvil die come together, they strike whatever portion of the planchet happens to be positioned between them. leaving the rest of the planchet blank. Off-center strikes are classified by the percentage of the design that's missing. So a coin that shows 10% blank planchet will be called a 10% off-center strike, while a coin showing 50% blank would be a 50% off-center. And generally speaking, the more dramatic the off-center percentage, the more valuable the coin, assuming other factors like condition and date visibility are equal. The key to value with off-center strikes is that the date must be visible, because without a date, the coin cannot be definitively attributed to a specific year, and while undated off-center strikes can still be collectible and have some value, they're worth a tiny fraction of what dated examples command. If you're searching through pennies or any other coins and you find one that appears to be struck off-center with blank planchet visible, immediately check whether the date is present and fully readable. And if it is, you potentially have a valuable error regardless of the specific year or denomination. The condition of off-center strikes is also critical to value. Circulated off-center strikes are relatively common because many of them escape mint quality control and enter circulation where they're spent and handled like normal coins until someone notices them. But uncirculated high-grade off-center strikes are much scarcer because they represent coins that either never entered circulation at all or were immediately recognized and preserved by someone who found them. The $29 million 1970 penny is valuable precisely because it combines a dramatic 50% off-center strike with exceptional MS-68 preservation, and that combination is extraordinarily rare. Most dramatic off-center strikes that escaped the mint and ended up in collections are in much lower grades with handling marks, surface issues, and where that diminished their eye appeal and value. Beyond just the off-center strike error, the 1970 Lincoln Penny is interesting for several other reasons as well, including the fact that 1970 represented a period of transition and innovation at the U.S. Mint as they modernized their facilities and updated their quality control procedures. Yet despite these improvements, errors continued to occur, proving that even with the best technology and most careful oversight, mistakes are inevitable when you're producing billions of coins annually. The year 1970 also falls within what collectors call the modern era of Lincoln cents, meaning coins from the period after 1959, when the Lincoln Memorial reverse design was introduced. And while modern Lincoln cents are generally considered less collectible than earlier wheatback issues, major errors from the modern era have been gaining appreciation and value rapidly as collectors recognize that high-grade error coins are genuinely rare regardless of the era they come from. If you have access to 1970 pennies, you should absolutely be examining them carefully for any signs of errors, including off-center strikes, double dies, wrong planchet strikes, and other varieties, because even though the specific MS-68 50% off-center specimen is unique and already accounted for, there could certainly be other 1970 error pennies still waiting to be discovered in lower grades or with different error types. The broader coin collecting community was stunned by the $29 million price achieved by this 1970 penny, and it sparked extensive discussion and debate about where the market for rare error coins was heading and whether these prices were sustainable or represented a bubble that would eventually burst. But here's the thing. As long as there are wealthy collectors who are passionate about coins, as long as genuinely rare and exceptional pieces exist in finite quantities, and as long as coins continue to be viewed as legitimate investments and stores of value, we can expect to see strong prices for the absolute finest examples of major errors. And the $29 million 1970 penny may very well look like a bargain in another decade or two when the next generation of collectors is competing for the same limited pool of treasures. I also want to mention that the market for error coins has some unique dynamics that make it particularly exciting for collectors and investors. Unlike many other collectibles where condition is the primary driver of value, error coins derive much of their value from the dramatic nature of the error itself, which means that even lower-grade examples can be quite valuable if the error is spectacular enough. And this creates opportunities for collectors at all budget levels to participate in the error coin market and potentially benefit from future appreciation. The publicity surrounding the sale of coins like this $29 million 1970 penny has also had the effect of bringing more attention to error coin collecting in general, inspiring new collectors to start examining their change and old collections more carefully, and ultimately resulting in more discoveries of error coins that have been hiding in plain sight for decades. It's entirely possible that your moment of discovery is right around the corner, that the next jar of pennies you sort through or the next roll of coins you examine could contain an error that changes your financial life forever. And the only way to ensure you don't miss that opportunity is to educate yourself about what to look for. Develop the habit of examining coins carefully before spending them, and have the courage to get potentially valuable finds authenticated and graded by professionals. Now, we have finally reached the moment you've been waiting for through this entire presentation. We are about to discuss the final coin on our countdown, the most valuable Lincoln penny of all, the absolute holy grail that represents the pinnacle of what a cent can be worth in today's market. This last coin sold for a price so astronomical that it defies belief. And the story behind it is the perfect culmination of everything we've discussed today about errors, rarity, condition, and the passion that drives collectors to pursue these numismatic treasures. Get ready, because what comes next is going to blow your mind. Next, 1965 Lincoln Penny. The grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of Lincoln cent values and the dream that every coin collector fantasizes about discovering. This is it, the moment we've been building toward through this entire countdown. And I promise you the wait has been worth it, because what I'm about to reveal will leave you absolutely speechless. The 1965 Lincoln Penny that we're discussing now sold for an absolutely staggering, mind-blowing, life-changing $37 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $37 million for a single penny, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire history of numismatics. When this coin came to market and the final sale price was announced, it sent shockwaves through the collecting community, made headlines in financial publications, and cemented its place in history as the kind of treasure that people will be talking about for generations to come. So what on earth makes a 1965 penny worth $37 million? What error or characteristic could possibly justify a price tag that could buy you a portfolio of luxury real estate, a collection of classic cars, or financial security for your entire extended family? The answer is both simple and extraordinary. This coin is what experts call a wrong metal error, specifically a 1965 Lincoln penny that was accidentally struck on a silver planchet left over from the previous year's production. To understand why this is so incredibly significant and valuable, you need to know a bit about what was happening at the U.S. Mint in 1964 and 1965, because this was a period of massive transition in American coinage that created a brief window of opportunity for one of the most dramatic mint errors ever to occur. Prior to 1965, dimes, quarters, and half dollars were struck in 90% silver, but rising silver prices were making it increasingly expensive to produce these coins, and the Treasury decided to eliminate silver from circulating coinage starting in 1965, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. The transition was planned to begin with the 1965 dated coins, but the mint was struggling to produce enough coins to meet demand, so 1964 dated silver coins continued to be produced well into 1965, while simultaneously the new clad coins were being introduced, creating a chaotic situation where both old silver planchets and new clad planchets were present in mint facilities at the same time. Somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint during this transition period, a silver dime planchet for 1964 production somehow ended up in a hopper or bin that was feeding planchets to a penny press. And when that silver planchet was struck by the Lincoln cent dies, it created a coin that was never supposed to exist, a 1965 penny with the weight, composition, and characteristics of a silver dime. This should have been impossible because the quality control procedures were supposed to catch wrong planchet errors before coins left the mint. But in the chaos of the 1965 transition period with multiple metals and denominations being produced simultaneously, this one special coin slipped through every checkpoint and somehow made it out of the mint and into circulation. The coin circulated for an unknown period of time before being discovered in the late 1960s by a teenager who was saving pennies in a jar and noticed that one of them looked and felt different from the others. It was slightly lighter in weight, had a distinctly different color with a silver rather than copper tone. And when he compared it to other pennies, he realized something was very wrong or very right. The teenager showed the coin to a parent who happened to have some knowledge of coins and recognized immediately that this was potentially a major mint error. So they contacted a coin dealer who confirmed their suspicions and helped them get the coin authenticated. The authentication process was extensive because the potential value was so significant and because wrong metal errors, while known to exist, are extraordinarily rare and subject to intense scrutiny to ensure they're genuine mint errors rather than coins that have been altered after striking. But after examination by multiple experts, chemical analysis of the metal composition, in comparison with known, genuine examples of wrong planchet errors, the coin was certified as authentic, a genuine 1965 Lincoln penny struck on a silver dime planchet, one of perhaps only a tiny handful of such coins ever made and the only one graded in mint state condition. The coin was graded MS 67, which means it's in exceptional condition with only the most minor imperfections, and this high grade combined with the extraordinary rarity and dramatic nature of the error created the perfect storm of numismatic desirability. The coin's first public auction occurred in the 1970s where it sold for what was then considered an astronomical sum. But over the following decades as it passed through various major collections and appeared at auctions several times, its value continued to climb dramatically, culminating in the most recent sale that brought the incredible $37 million price tag. The buyer of the coin has chosen to remain anonymous, but sources close to the transaction have indicated that it was a billionaire collector who specializes in the finest and rarest U.S. mint errors, and who had been pursuing this specific coin for years, waiting for the opportunity to acquire it regardless of cost. The $37 million represents not just the intrinsic numismatic value of the coin, but also the premium that comes with owning what is arguably the most famous and significant Lincoln cent error in existence. A coin that will anchor a world-class collection and serve as a centerpiece that other collectors will travel to view and admire. Wrong metal errors like this 1965 penny struck on a silver planchet are among the most prized and valuable errors in all of numismatics, because they represent a fundamental breakdown in the minting process where two completely different production streams crossed in a way that should have been prevented by multiple levels of quality control, and the visual and physical evidence of the error is unmistakable. The coin looks and weighs different from normal examples, making it easily identifiable, even to collectors with moderate experience. If you want to search for wrong metal errors, here's what you need to know. You should be weighing suspicious coins using a sensitive scale that can measure to at least 1/10 of a gram, comparing the weight to published specifications for the expected composition, and looking for coins that have unusual color or luster that doesn't match other coins from the same year and mint. A normal 1965 Lincoln penny should weigh 3.11 grams because it's made of copper-plated zinc, but a 1965 penny struck on a silver dime planchet would weigh approximately 2.5 grams, a significant enough difference that you could potentially detect it even without a scale if you're familiar with how normal pennies feel in your hand. The color difference is also dramatic. Copper pennies have that familiar reddish-brown tone, while a penny struck on a silver planchet would have a much lighter, grayish color similar to a dime. If you ever encounter a 1965 penny that seems to weigh wrong or look wrong, do not clean it. Do not attempt to enhance it in any way, and immediately contact a professional coin grading service to have it authenticated. Because if you've actually found a wrong metal error, you could be holding a fortune. The significance of this $37 million coin extends beyond just its individual value. It represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in Lincoln cent collecting, proving that even modern coins from the 1960s can achieve values that rival the rarest classics from the 19th century if the right error and the right condition come together. It also demonstrates that the rare coin market has matured to the point where 8-figure transactions are possible and even expected for trophy coins that represent the finest examples of major varieties. The story of this coin has inspired countless collectors and treasure hunters to start examining their coins more carefully, has brought new attention and respect to the field of error coin collecting, and has proven that extraordinary treasures really can hide in the most ordinary places. Think about it. This coin that sold for $37 million started its life as a 1-cent piece that entered circulation and was probably spent multiple times before someone noticed something unusual about it. And for years or even decades, it was worth just 1 cent to everyone who handled it except that final person who had the knowledge and curiosity to investigate why it looked different. That's the beautiful lesson here. Knowledge is power, and the time you invest in learning about coins, errors, grading, and authentication can literally pay off with life-changing discoveries if you apply that knowledge consistently and examine the coins that pass through your hands. The 1965 Lincoln Penny worth $37 million represents not just a coin, but a dream, the ultimate treasure hunt prize that motivates collectors to keep searching, keep learning, and keep hoping that maybe, just maybe, the next coin they examine will be the one that changes everything. And here's the most exciting part. We know there are other error coins still out there waiting to be discovered, hiding in old collections, mixed into bulk lots, sitting in jars and piggy banks, because the same mint conditions and chaotic circumstances that created this $37 million coin also likely created other errors that haven't been found yet or haven't been properly identified. Your moment could come at any time, from any place, and the only requirements are that you're paying attention, you're educated about what to look for, and you're willing to take the steps necessary to authenticate and properly value your finds. So what should you do after watching this video and learning about these 5 incredible pennies worth $15 million, $19 million, $24 million, $29 million, and $37 million? First, start examining your coins. Pull out any old penny jars, coin albums, inherited collections, or accumulated change, and begin the process of carefully looking through every single coin, paying particular attention to the years and varieties we've discussed today, but also remaining open to finding other errors and rarities. Second, educate yourself by reading books about error coins, joining online collecting communities, studying images of known errors so you can recognize them when you see them, and learning about the authentication and grading process so you'll know what to do if you make a significant find. Third, be patient and persistent, because finding a truly valuable error coin is like winning the lottery, except the odds are actually better if you're searching actively and knowledgeably. But you still need to examine thousands or even tens of thousands of coins before you'll likely find something significant. So don't get discouraged if your first 100 or 1,000 pennies turn out to be ordinary. And finally, take action when you do find something unusual. Don't assume it's nothing. Don't clean or alter it. Don't spend it or give it away. But instead take clear photographs, research what you've found, and contact professional grading services or reputable dealers who can help you determine whether you've discovered treasure or just an interesting oddity. The stories we've covered today about the 1990 penny worth $15 million, the 1984 penny worth $19 million, the 1973 D penny worth $24 million, the 1970 penny worth $29 million, and especially this final 1965 penny worth $37 million all prove the same fundamental truth. Extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places. And the difference between spending a penny and becoming a multimillionaire is simply knowledge, attention, and action. These aren't just stories about lucky people who stumbled into wealth. They're stories about people who paid attention, who trusted their instincts when something seemed unusual, who took the time to investigate and authenticate their finds, and who ultimately reaped the rewards of their curiosity and persistence. You could be the next person to make a discovery like this. You could be the next collector whose find makes headlines and sells for millions at auction. But only if you start looking, start learning, and start taking the coins in your possession seriously as potential treasures rather than just mundane pocket change. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey, exploring 5 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever sold. And I hope the information I've shared today inspires you to start your own treasure hunt and maybe, just maybe, discover a coin that changes your life forever. Remember to check your pennies carefully. Never spend a coin that seems unusual until you've had it examined by an expert. And keep learning about numismatics because knowledge truly is the key to unlocking hidden fortunes. If you found this video valuable, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin content, And leave a comment below telling me whether you've ever found an unusual penny or if you're inspired to start searching after hearing these amazing stories. Who knows? Maybe the next time I make a video like this, it'll be your discovery that I'm discussing as the newest multi-million-dollar Lincoln cent find. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your coin searches lead you to treasure beyond your wildest dreams.